Dear listeners, welcome to our second dialogue, preparing ourselves for Easter through this Lenten period. Now today, we keep searching with Mary Magdalene, where is his body? Jesus' body. And we are going to focus today on two aspects of searching for his body. Jesus had an opportunity with a lady, Samaritan lady, to debate, to dialogue about the worship, the correct, the valid worship to God. And now I appreciate, as every time I do, the presence of Johnny, and Wesson today, debating, dialoguing about the subject. So I will ask first Johnny to read this episode in the Gospel of John, where Jesus, being by a well to drink water, a lady, Samaritan lady, would come. She needs the water herself and her house. So, Johnny, see what happened between the two.
Thank you, Sayyidina. This is from John chapter 4, verse 3 through 14. He left Judea and departed again to Galilee. He had to pass through Samaria. So he came to a city of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and so Jesus, wearied as he was with his journey, sat down beside the well. It was about the 6th hour. There came a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink," for his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, and you say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship?" Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For such the Father seeks to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." The woman said to him, "I know that Messiah is coming, he who is called Christ. When he comes, he will show us all things." Jesus said to her, I who speak to you am he.
Thank you, Johnny. This is a shortened text. It is a text, but I selected the main sentences that regard our topic today. So, the issue is drawing water. We are thirsty, all of us. But Jesus elevates our search for natural physical water into consideration of a different spring, fountain of spiritual water. And that is the meaning, the spiritual meaning of worship. We go to God, not to a physical temple, worshiping in a physical way. Worship, Jesus elevates to mean you go to God to squash your thirst, spiritual thirst. So worshiping is not a matter of building, of stones. He's telling her, she's asking you where? In Jerusalem, where the temple is? No. Not where Jerusalem the temple is. Now I'm talking about worshiping in truth and spirit. In spirit and truth. In spirit and truth. Materialistic worship in a building, physical building, implying offering of animals, sacrifices of physical characteristic, that is to be finished with. Okay, it looks like you are a Messiah or a prophet. Tell me, then, when the Messiah will come, you are a prophet, okay, tell me then, isn't not that the Messiah will come and teach us where to worship? The Messiah is in front of you, lady, Samaritan lady. And I have to make one small comment about the Samaritan lady. Samaria is a spot where Mesopotamian kings brought people from Mesopotamia, Chaldeans and Assyrians, and made them reside there while taking the 10 tribes, taking them especially into Mesopotamia. So Jesus was very gentle to this lady, very kind, really expressing kindness, I would say, to all of our ancestors from that land. Now the question is now, I would ask my sister Wasam. The question is now, time will come when the worship will go up spiritually. And you know there is a time and a question and answer between Jesus and the Jews around him about how that will come about. Can you read the text that is in regard to that question and answer, please?
Thank you, Sayyidina. This is about his body is the new temple. It's from the book of John 2, verse 13 to 22. The Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple, he found those who were selling oxen and sheep and pigeons, and the money changers at their businesses. And making a whip of cords, he drove them all with the sheep and oxen out of the temple, And he poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. And he told those who sold the pigeons, "Take these things away. You shall not make my Father's house a house of trade." His disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for thy house will consume me." The Jews then said to him, "What sign have you to show us for doing this?" Jesus answered them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." The Jews then said, "It has taken 46 years to build this temple, and will you raise it up in 3 days?" But he spoke of the temple of his body. When therefore he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and the word which Jesus had spoken.
Thank you. So now, to the Samaritan lady, Jesus explained that this is going to come. And now, in dialogue with the Jews, he answered to that inquiry. How? How the worship will become not physical but spiritual. How? His body. His body. Well, the temple, I think now there is some ambivalence, some dual meaning. The temple, in fact, will be destroyed in the year 70. But he meant not only the destruction of the physical temple, Jesus meant that his own body will be offered to God in sacrifice, will be physically destroyed, not broken, but destroyed, like hit. And because this will be the offering to God to redeem all the universe and most of all humankind, that will be the new temple where worship to God is fulfilled marvelously. Now, John, tell me how this is applied in the church. Jesus is saying something so gorgeous, but so sublime, so elevated. How you in your family, in your society, in your community, how do you fulfill this? How do you apply what Jesus is saying, that his body is the temple? Well, you know, in the temple there is a pontiff, there is a sacrifice, there's a priest and the sacrifice. But how would you participate in that? How would you apply it?
Okay, so if we understand as humans that Jesus resides, God resides in the Eucharist, we understand that and we believe that as Christians. We must accept it and we must tell it to the world, teach it to our family, teach it to our friends, and we must make a journey, a weekly journey to the church, but not to the church, the physical church, to the church which is Jesus' body, where we can worship truly Him. We are there at church for Him, for His body. The temple, which is Him, the tabernacle. We need to be there to worship, to be on our knees. We can worship with our bodies, and we worship with our minds, we worship with our souls, and we worship with our sacrifices.
That is a great application. And you see, the church the building of the church also. So there is the church as a community, and Johnny exactly explained how this worship is done by the church as a community. But we also call a building church. So how would you connect the building of the church to what Jesus said? That his body is the temple, the new temple, the messianic temple, the spiritual temple, where a valid and eternally valid sacrifice is offered. How do you connect that?
Jesus also, when he spoke to the Jews, he connected his body to the temple as a building. He told them about his body, that he's the one that's going to die, and then the temple of the building that they are worshiping. There is always this connection between the body of Jesus and the building. So wherever a building is, it has to resemble that temple of his body. And he's the pontiff and he's the sacrifice. Plus, it has to be with spirit and truth.
Thank you. You connected very nicely all the elements together in one, I would say, formulation. Exactly, it is that. So our churches, yeah, we can build our churches elegantly. They can be modern. They can have all the modern facilities, if you want, of sound systems, of I don't know, heating and cooling and other facilities that electricity, lighting, chandeliers, carpet, everything. But they all must help us see Jesus present and offering himself for us, as he did it once historically, and as it is renewed sacramentally and liturgically every time the sacrifice of the Mass is offered by the priest. So the building of the church also should reflect that spirituality. Thank you for sharing today's dialogue about the temple that is the body of Jesus, the new temple, the eternal temple, the messianic temple, where we worship in spirit and truth. See you next in the third dialogue. Thank you.
Yeah. آيت يا قورة مركب